The Manage Users page is found on the Payroll Settings tab here, or also here. You can find Manage Users under the Business Management section here. The Manage Users page here allows you to create a full or restricted user that has access to the business file. On this page you can also manage employee groups and additional two-factor authentication settings. It should be noted here that 2FA is mandatory for a full access user or any restricted users that have access to reporting. We'll take a look at the Manage Users tab first. To add a new user, click the Add button on the right-hand side of the page here. From here, you're able to set up the following types of user. Full access. This gives the user administrator access to all areas and functions, including payroll. The second type of user is a restricted access user. This is commonly given to managers. When adding a new user, you'll be required to complete the following steps: the user's email address and also the user's full name. If you have selected full access, the new user will receive two separate emails, one with login details and one containing instructions on creating a password and login to payroll. If the user that you're adding already has access to another business, they won't receive an email. They can just use their current login details to access the new business. If restricted access is selected, further settings will appear for you to complete. I'm now going to add a restricted user in order to show you the different types of access. Here you'll see 4 different tabs. You can choose to activate one or all 4 of the different types of access. We have employee access, location access, reporting access, and also clock me in access. We'll take a look at the employee access first. You'll need to select a group of employees that the manager can access. To create a new employee group, you can simply click on the Create button here. On the pop-up page on the right-hand side, you can now enter the name for the new employee group and complete the criteria required that make up this group. You can include more than one criteria by clicking on Add Another Criteria here, and then choose whether multiple criteria must match all or any of the criteria selected. If you click on the drop-down box for the criteria here, you'll notice a few different options that you can choose from. If we insert the primary location, airport cafe, kitchen here, this drop-down box here allows you to select is one of or is not one of. For example, you might want to create an employee group where it must match all criteria and the primary location must be one of kitchen. As you can see, there are 0 employees matching that criteria. If we add a different location, for example, airport cafe terminal 1 now, it will change to show you there are now 6 matching employees to that location. We'll just delete this one now and leave terminal 1. As you can see, it's their primary location. This employee group would consist of 6 employees. Don't forget to name your employee group at the top. Once you're happy with the settings, you can press save. So we're now going to assign an employee group to our new manager. By clicking the Add Group here, you can select the one we've just created, Admin Level 1. The 2 previous ones are ones already created in the business. You can select multiple employee groups that the user will have access to by clicking Add Another Group just here. Once you've assigned the user to an employee group, you are then able to set the permissions for the user. These permissions will allow the user to perform the following tasks only for the employees they have access to according to their employee group. Once you've selected the options that you need, simply click the Save button here. We're now going to take a look at the Locations tab here. The limitation with the employee groups is that it only defines the employee or employees that a manager can see. It does not restrict location-specific data that a manager has access to. This is particularly highlighted when it comes to rostering and timesheets. To provide greater flexibility in setting user permissions for managers, location access is really handy. The user permissions afforded to employee group access are also provided to location access. We're now going to grant access to locations, and you'll see here the criteria. We can select locations or any sub-locations. The sub-location is referring to any location that has been added underneath another one. This is done via the Payroll Settings Locations page. You can then click on the next field here and select the location. Each line here represents a sub-location, i.e. a location that has been added underneath an existing one. By setting location access, the user is then able to view and create timesheets, if given permission, relating to that location, even if the primary location of the employee is different. This is what differentiates it from employee access, because when a location is used as a condition with employee access, it will give the user access to employees with the specified location as their default location, i.e. the one set on the employee file, Payroll defaults page. This type of user permission setup makes it easier for managers to focus on the location or locations they are responsible for, as that's the only data they are able to view. Let's now have a look at the Reporting tab. When a user has reporting access, they will be able to access reporting functions in the payroll account, but they won't be able to access any other functions. Additionally, if the restricted user also has either employee group and/or location access, you can restrict the reports so they will honour the restrictions in place for the employee group and/or location. When a user generates a report, only the employees they have access to, according to their employee group or location access, will populate in the reports. You can choose to give a user access to all the reports or just specific reports. It's worth noting, no reports is set by default. You can also choose to give access to all reports here. In this situation, the user will have access to all reports but may still have restrictions applied based on employee group or location settings if applicable. If you decide to select report packs, you need to have a report pack set up first for this to apply. You can do this via the Reports, Report Packs page. To put this one into context, giving a user access to report packs also relates to their ability to download the report packs. This is because when a user is setting up a report pack on the Reports page, there's an option to request that recipients must log in to download the report pack. If that setting has been enabled, restricted users must be given report pack access in order to do that. The final option here is the following reports. By selecting this option, you are able to select from a list of specific reports that you would like to give the user access to. These reports can be restricted based on employee group or location access, as before. You can also configure the restrictions for reporting. I just draw your attention to this setting here. No restriction on reporting data. This will either restrict or not restrict reporting data based on the employee or location settings applied. This option will only appear if the user also has either employee group and/or location access. You can leave this unticked if the user has employee access, such as this one here, meaning that if I don't want reports to be restricted based on employee group access, I'll leave it unticked. It is worth noting there are a few reports here that will not apply the data restrictions, even if this box is ticked. These are the Journal Report, Payment File Report, and the Employee Satisfaction Report. The final of the four tabs here is the Clock Me In tab. This permission is only relevant to businesses that use the time and attendance features. You are able to select from the following three options: no kiosks, all kiosks, or select the individual kiosks you require. You can select from all kiosks. This gives the user access to the Quick Add Employee functionality in the kiosk. If you are giving a restricted user access to multiple kiosks, select the following kiosks option. Then you can select each of the kiosks you would like to grant access to. You can also choose the Add Employee from Kiosk option here. If the boxes are already ticked against a kiosk, such as this one here for Terminal 1, this means that when the kiosk was set up, the option to make the kiosk available to all restricted users with Clock Me In access was already enabled. It's worth noting that restricted users will not be given the same permissions as full access users in regards to Clock Me In. As a minimum, and regardless of the user's employee group or location permissions in Payroll, restricted users will be able to log in and out of Clock Me In using their Payroll login details. They can also enter and exit admin mode. They can clock in and out on behalf of an employee. They can begin and end their break on behalf of an employee, and they can enter notes against clocking activities and/or timesheets. If a restricted access user also has employee group and/or location access, these restrictions will still be honoured once the restricted user is granted access to Clock Me In. It should also be noted that restricted access users will not have the access to be able to add or edit a kiosk. That's all for now on editing user access.